from PRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster whose socks are too tight. I think my socks are too tight, this particular pair. Hey, but that helps me focus. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep.
Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about tonight's sponsor, and it's the bed I've been sleeping in year after year after. You've been hearing me talk about Helix mattresses for years. Here's a question. Have you taken the Helix quiz? Okay, we'll take it right now. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep and take the Helix Sleep quiz, because you deserve a mattress made for you and how you sleep, your feel preferences. What do you need, right? Did your mattress ever ask you that? And I can say that because my mattress is right in the other room. It says, yeah, Scoots, actually, before we even met, I asked you, hey, do you sleep on your side? Do you sleep on your stomach? Do you sleep hot? Do you sleep cold? What firmness do you like? What else do I need to know? Talk about the foundations of a relationship that lasts a long time. You know, you could tell your mattress, tell it right now, you're in bed, right? Say, I got needs. I need you to meet my needs. And it's something that's going to improve your sleep, improve your days, improve how your body feels. Because when you have a mattress that's right for you, it makes your life better. It's a simple thing. That's what Helix has been all about. That's why we've been partnering with Helix year after year after year. But more importantly, every single night, I'm in my Helix bed. So it's time for your mattress to start caring about you and your needs, right? So how do you do that? Well, Helix has got your needs in mind, too. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep. That's 27% off site-wide, plus a free bedding bundle. That includes a sheet set and a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. This Memorial Day sale offer is exclusive for listeners of Sleep With Me. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for this exclusive Memorial Day sale offer. That's 27% off site-wide, plus a free bedding bundle. That includes a sheet set and a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, I want to tell you about a podcast made by a friend of mine to expand your bedtime listening. Now, would you like to relax or fall asleep with curious stories from history? If so, then try Calm History, a podcast that will educate and sedate you. Relax with gently narrated stories about ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, the Pilgrims, the Titanic, and more traditional history. There are even more episodes about things flying in outer space, beings with large feet, things named Nessie, and more. So just search in your podcast player for Calm History, or use the link in the episode notes. That's CALM, Calm History. Check it out. Thanks, everybody.
Are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. As I said, this is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to do is create a safe place where you can set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thinking, feeling, whatever it is. If it's physical sensations, stuff at work, stuff at school, just life stuff, or, temporary stuff, travel, whatever it is, I want to take your mind off of it. A safe place is a place where you could, I know you can't set it aside. I think that's one thing that can be hard when you can't sleep, is say, well, why don't you just forget about it? And on this podcast, I never say that, because, well, if I do, I apologize. Because I know how hard it is, I just can't forget it. I can't fall asleep. I got stuff on my mind. I can't just turn my brain off. And that's what I can be like sometimes. And for some of you, that's not the case. Maybe it's something else, but maybe it's similar. And I made this podcast in an attempt to put some of you to sleep, to distract you. And like I said, we do it with the bedtime story. What I'm going to do is send my voice across the deep, dark night. That's part one of the safe place. Part two is I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders. That's good. That's part two. Part three, no expectations. Like I said, I'm not going to say, what do you mean you can't fall asleep? That's like the worst thing you say. Anyway, I don't want to get into it because I don't want to, say, turn the temperature up. So you're under no pressure. You're also under no pressure to fall asleep. You could fall asleep at your leisure. You could listen as a distraction. You could listen before bed. You can listen in bed. You could listen, if you're folding socks. If you're stretching socks, that might be what I do this evening. Say, well, Friday night, what do you say we do a little sock stretching? And I mean that in the literal sense, not that thing, Nana. The kind of sock stretching you do with doors unlocked and wide open. I'd say, I don't care if you look in my windows. I'm stretching socks. Maybe I do. Is that something you could get shamed for by, like, stretching straps, like actual sock stretching? A little bit of a tongue twister, but if you're new here, you're under no expectation to fall asleep. You're also under no pressure to listen or to pay attention. I'm going to try to distract you. I'm going to be mildly entertaining. Maybe I'll give you a case of the boar giggles. But ideally, you won't even remember. You say, I think I giggled once, or maybe it's like I sneezed. Like an amused sneeze, like an amuse bouche. That's like before a sneeze. I don't know. I was trying to make that into something that won't go together, but sounds the same. Amused sneeze and amuse. Don't sneeze in my amuse bouche. I'll tell you that. Also, I don't know when. I'm trying to think of the last time I had an amuse bouche. Would have been my brother's mighty bouche. You're right, brain. That doesn't have anything to do with it, but it sounds similar. Correct. I think it was my brother's wedding, and that was 2014. It was my last amuse bouche. It's 2015. I don't know. My years are mangled together in my mind. That was my last amuse bouche. So one day, except for the ones I make, but I call that lunch. I don't know, sardine on a cracker. That's a mouthful. There you go. Chris Posty Posterson has a podcast called Sounds Like an Earful. Anyway, if you're new here, I'm going to try to take your mind off stuff. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation. And usually, so here's how the structure of the podcast works. There's like 5 minutes of business or so, or, credits and how we support the show. Then there's about an 8 to 12 minute intro, which we're in the midst of here. And then we'll talk about, we'll do a couple run-throughs of the last episode of Star Trek The Next Generation I watched, the Royale. But I thought maybe we'd get it maybe we could use in these intros, we could use the wisdom I called it from the episode, like one piece of wisdom. And this one comes from Jean-Luc Picard. And he's like, we'll see what he's talking about. But he says, puts things in perspective. In our arrogance, we feel we are so advanced, yet we cannot unravel a simple knot tied by a part-time French mathematician. He said it smoother, working alone without a computer. We cannot unravel. In our arrogance, we feel we're so advanced, but we can't even undo this simple mathematical puzzle. That's what they're talking about. And I can say to that, I feel you, Jean-Luc, because I was just, if you were listening to the podcast, because if we're like the beings in the episode of Justice, where if you're a multidimensional being now, I mean, I've existed in multi-dimensions, not on this exact podcast episode, but I have traveled the realms of fiction, fantasy. I've traveled multidimensionally to the world of Game of Thrones. And I couldn't spend any time there just because of the fluxing. But I was just making a point, Jean-Luc, about, to call you Captain Picard. Of course. Does that mean I'm in Starfleet? No. Okay. I'm having trouble with this figment of Jean-Luc in my brain. I'm just trying to, pay you your wisdom. I was just working with you. Proceed. Thank you, Captain. Sorry. Thank you, Captain Picard. Could I be number 4? Like, I wouldn't mind if I was like number 4. Okay, talk to Starfleet. You got it. I will. Yeah, they've shredded all my application. Anyway, I got to get to, sorry, a little pinch of Picard there. But he was saying in our arrogance, we feel so advanced we can't unravel a simple knot. And that's how it can feel at bedtime, both sides of it. Say, Jesus, this thing I need every single night. I desire to get a good night's sleep. But then not only is it difficult to do so sometimes or regularly or situationally, whatever you're grappling with, on top of that, and maybe there's some internal arrogance you're doing battle with or brain bots or self-criticism, but then you get into this relational arrogance where people just don't understand, and then they take a little bit of a haughty attitude, and they say, well, you just got to try harder. If you want to get a good night's sleep, you got to try harder. And you see, I can tell you what, I'm not a sleep scientist, but I can tell you that trying harder does not work like falling asleep. Come on. And then they probably say, well, you're probably doing it wrong. That's why. You say, well, exactly. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I'm trying to fall asleep. I don't know how I'm doing it wrong. Clearly, I'm doing it wrong. Because if I was doing it right, I would have slept last night. We wouldn't be having this discussion. We'd be talking about something inane. Instead of now, and then you kind of get it, and then the knot tightens. So Captain Picard is wise, maybe wise enough to fast track an imaginary application to Starfleet for someone that's not qualified and won't probably follow the chain of command. But there's all these things we think we have figured out, and sometimes it can be very perplexing. And other people won't do, just like parents just don't understand. Do you think if the Fresh Prince, like if Will Smith was actually the Fresh Prince, like that was an autobiographical song, talk about like not understanding, now one of the biggest stars on the planet for the past like 20 years, don't you think the parents, like they would say, they couldn't have understood. I don't know. I thought that was going to come together. Sometimes my thoughts don't come together. That's why I do the show. But yeah, like you're trying to get to sleep. It's something, I don't know. So I made this podcast. I guess that's my point. And it doesn't work for everybody. I hope it works for you. Give it a few tries. If you're skeptical, why wouldn't you be? You say, what has this guy been talking about for 8 to 12 minutes? And I thought this was going to put me to sleep. I said, well, it takes time. You're not under pressure to fall asleep. And, I'll ramble, but I'll be here for you. And I hope it works for you because I've been there. And I'm glad you're here. And not only do I hope, I really yearn to help you fall asleep. So thanks for stopping by. All right, everybody, summer is just around the corner, and folks at Mint Mobile want you to know a few things. This is unofficial Mint Mobile news. I'm pretty sure since it's going to be summertime, somewhere in the world, Ryan Reynolds is going to be shirtless. But for the rest of us, let's talk about saving money on our wireless plans, right? Are you going to join me and move over to Mint Mobile? Because I'm looking for something affordable this summer. I mean, yeah, would I like to be shirtless like Ryan Reynolds? Shirtless Ryan Reynolds? I would. But in lieu of that, what if I save money on my wireless bill? And with premium wireless plans for just $15 a month, you can save without breaking a sweat or the bank. My daughter was on Mint Mobile way back in 2020, so I know it's a reliable service. And I don't even know what I was waiting for. My behavior almost doesn't make any sense. Kind of like I feel when I see Ryan Reynolds shirtless. So it's time to say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number
along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/sleepwithme. That's mintmobile.com/sleepwithme. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 gigabyte plan required. Equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Thanks, everybody. All right, so we're talking about the Royale, which I had a lot of trouble with the title. Royale. I didn't write that. It's season 2. I think around episode 8. I didn't write that down. I think most of the time I was calling the episode either in my notes, the Hotel Royale or the Palace Hotel. Again, that's just dyslexia talking. But this week I did the same, I watched the episode once. Our good friend Ahab's wife recommended this episode, and I'd never seen it before. So what I did was I watched it once, like a casual watch for pleasure, and didn't take any notes. I just enjoyed it. And this is the episode when you're first time viewing it is really enjoyable. And even on my second and third time. So then I watched it again on mute. And I still found, should I watch it at 3, 15-minute increments? Which is going to, watching a TV show on mute. But so that's what I did this week, was I watched it in 3 15-minute chunks. And then I watched it again with the sound on, to kind of get a better sense of the dialogue. I think I watched that one in a 30-minute chunk and then a 15-minute chunk. And then maybe on our second run through, I'll roll the episode in the background here. So this one won't have any dialogue discussions unless I remembered something. It opens with a very green planet. I put Earth-like ? And we see the Enterprise, and we're on the deck, which is actually the bridge. Sometimes I call it the deck. I don't know why. Data was befuddled, annoyed look. Except that's not was, it's Wes. So Data gives Wesley a befuddled, annoyed look. Riker and Geordi are figuring out some sort of scan. The scan's a little bit 8-bit. I don't know what this says. Geordi Gel Chill. Geordi Gel. Or 6EEL. Chill, that's definitely... Oh, Geordi gets a chill. I remember this now. He does a little shiver, more of a shiver than a chill. Then Picard's kicked back. Definitive screen. What does that mean? Rotation. Definitive screen rotation expression ? Wow, these notes are unbelievably detailed. Definitive screen rotation expression or express scan. Mailing points and amusing Riker. Making points and amusing Riker. So he's making some points and it's amusing Riker. Then he takes a pull. I don't know what this means. Maybe next time I'll have it running now. Takes a pull. I don't know what happened, but then the Enterprise, then we see the planet, trampoline row. Transporter room. Something, nope, use fling. Oh, what happens is they bring in a piece of a plane or a spaceship. Oh, that's junk. Transporter room junk. Nope, use flag. USA flag. And then they see NASA on it and they say, holy cow. And then the episode opens. So they found a piece of junk in space. And it has a United States flag and NASA on there. Then we're in the conference room. We see the episode's called The Royale. Static steers. I don't know what that says. Static steers at staff meeting. It's 2 exclamation points, too. Oh, you know what it is? I remember. This was disappointing. I don't want to, I'm not here to criticize Star Trek.
And the fact is, the air date of this episode was like March of 1989, so 28 years ago almost. But I was a little disappointed because I do appreciate whatever that Disney concept is of motion. I forget, there's a nice word for it that I don't remember. And how that adds to our immersion and illusion. And in the boardroom, it was clear that the stars were just like projected or, some sort of like just static part of the set. So the stars weren't moving. They were actual physical, what do you call that? What do they say about Star Wars? They say, oh, they're using something effects, like the real effects, like instead of, it wasn't green screen stars, but it wasn't moving. And I mean, just it pulled me out and I said, oh man, it could but not a huge point, but big enough for me to talk about it once I could decipher my handwriting. Counselors, Troy's arms are crossed, which brings up this question about climate control on the ship and what is the ideal temperature of the Enterprise. Is Counselor Troy cold at this moment? Can't you wear, I don't know. I don't really want to delve into I don't know. I haven't watched enough episodes to delve into the outfits and controversy around that, but is it just, could she have a sweater? Or was it body language? But her arms are crossed in a way they said, maybe she's cold. Then I can't read this thing. Something Clint control on the ship. Climate control on the ship, double question mark. Man, my handwriting in this notes is terrible. Geordi does another scan, very Minecrafty. Then Worf, Data, and Riker transport out. And they're in this, really cool. This was very David Lynch. It was great. They're just against this black. They're in, a pure blackness. But under this, gas, green gas sky. Very dreamlike. And it phases something. They pull their phasers out. And then they see a lone revolving door against pure blackness. And I think this was inky. When people say it was inky blackness, I would say this is it almost had it was almost textureless. It was so deep, but it was so textureless it had texture, which probably doesn't make any sense, but I bet you can picture it in your head. And there's just this lone revolving door, and it's revolving, old-fashioned wooden. It's calling, and it's not attached to anything. Spinning on its own reminds me of something, but I couldn't figure out. It reminded me of something. I never placed it. Riker checks in with Picard, who's like, what? Worf looks irritated, and then they go through the door, and then they're in a Las Vegas hotel, the Palace. Of course, I was wrong. It's the Royale. It was Palace-like. Oh, Palace motif. Confused? Yes, they are. And then the bridge, and Geordi's confused, and Captain Picard's not happy. Then they're looking around the hotel. I started calling them the hotel crew, the three of them. Then Picard seemed like he was scolding Geordi. Then we see the big green planet on the screen. Then we see Data and Riker. They put their phasers away, but Worf still has his out. Finally, he puts his away. They go to the lobby, the desk. They talk to the assistant manager, who's definitely an actor we've seen in a lot of things before. But, of course, I put a star, so I would look it up, which I did not. And then there's a bellhop who's in blue and maroon. And they share a moment, him and the assistant manager. Then he gives them he gives the guys, Riker, Data, and Worf, keys and casino chips. And Worf's very skeptical. He has really hilarious looks in this episode. He kind of looks at the cheese, I don't know. And then they kind of somebody asks the manager a question. He looks at them like they're dense. Here's another question. Then Data pulls out some kind of scanner. And I think I mentioned it later in my notes, but it looked like a receipt printer. And I asked myself this. I guess I didn't follow up, but where's he keeping this? Like, did he, like, I didn't notice it. Like, I mean, I'm not good at what is that called? Continuity anyway. So he could have had it on his belt the whole time. I didn't notice it, but I put from where. Then people are gambling. Then it's an ad. Then Data's doing a scan and they're discussing. And there's like this older Texas rhinestone wearing cowboy guy with a little bit of a Rodney Dangerfield look. Riker's cracking up at all this. Then on the bridge, we got Wes and Geordi, and Picard's like, WTF, man. Like, he's not happy. And I think he was saying, like, press some more buttons and use both hands. And then I brought up again this is like, how much of this is improv, like Wes and Geordi's, like, hand motions? Because I was just watching, like, a lot of what they were doing. And then Picard and Troy are, like, on the bridge. She seemed less cold. Her arms were uncrossed. She seemed relaxed on the bridge. So maybe the bridge has a different temperature. And then Data starts rolling around the casino. I mean, this episode, thank you, Ahab's wife, for mentioning this, because this is just, if you're a fan of Data or Worf like I am, I mean, this is just a gem. And if you're a Riker fan, which I'm not, I mean, I don't want to, I guess I don't know, maybe it might just be like a testosterone thing. I'm not anti-Riker, but I just, I treasure moments with Data and Worf. So if you like moments with Data and Worf, this is an episode for you. So Data starts playing blackjack. The cowboy puts his hat on Data. Data says some, like, comedy moves with their cards, like shuffling them. Raises his eyebrows. Is like, I think I said, I don't know when I said this, but I would love to, like, I don't know. Let me know if you're a huge Next Generation person, like, where I could see episode outtakes, because there's some outtakes I would love to see. So he does stuff with his eyes. And, like, I guess I don't want to delve too deep into it, but, like, who hung with who of the cast? Like, who's friends? I guess I probably don't want to know, because, like, what if they didn't like each other or something? I guess then I could, I could hop in the fantasy fiction machine and deal with it. Okay, so Data gets a lot of hits when he's playing blackjack. Texas guy's a little leany. He's like a bit of a dirtbag to this woman next to him. Dealer has a very sweet tuxedo shirt on. And Data hits all these low cards, and so he gets 21 blackjack. He has a pleased look. Then Riker and Worf roll up, and they kind of like, oh yeah, this is where I put, there must have been really good bloopers, because when they see Data in the hat, there's no way there wasn't outtakes from this scene. It was almost like something on a vibration level. I could detect their total amusement with the ridiculousness in a good way, like Worf and Riker. I don't know. I guarantee there must have been, because he looked hilarious. And he was just really hamming it up in the best way. So then they roll out. Then Picard checks up on Geordi and Wes. They're still pressing lots of buttons and moving, doing sliders. Like two-finger slide, like stuff Apple would invent, 20 years after this. Also made me curious, like, what is more better? But, like, physical sliders or finger sliders? I mean, I guess in this future, it's, touch screens. Then what does this say? Place 3? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Place 3. But maybe the 3. The Palace 3. They try to go out the door, the rotating door, and they just rotate right back in. And they give it 2 tries, and they're totally baffled. Then Data starts talking to, like, a retiree who's on a slot machine. She hits a jackpot. And Riker's trying to talk to people. They're ignoring him, so he seems annoyed. And then Worf, he, like, walks over to 2 slot machines, pushes them out of the way, starts, like, pushing on the wall, trying to find, like, a secret door panel. Then he tries to phaser the walls. And I think in, like, stun and full mode, no dice. Then Data returns. He's like, wait, bros, we're stuck here. Then we see the green planet. We see the bridge. Then we see Geordi on the case. Then Picard and Troy talk. Then we see a little bit of this Riker swagger. Like, so this might be why because Riker swaggers. And I think that triggers, like, something in me, to say, well, why is this guy swaggering? I want to be the swaggerer, Riker. But I mean, he is growing on me because he's always so amused. Probably just jealous. I mean, why lie about it? Like, probably just jealous of Riker. I mean, a part of me would be like, this is what my life's gotten to. I'm jealous of Riker. But I think already doing this podcast, is this the fifth episode? I think, like, it's a deserved thing in a good way to be jealous. He's swaggering. Then we see the bellhop's in trouble with the manager. Riker's in the background waiting at the hotel desk. Riker talks to the manager, kind of gets a run around. Riker clicks his chest, tries to check in with the bridge. Data has some data on his receipt printer. Then they try to go on the elevator, but they're tentative. Data presses the button. And then they're walking the halls of the hotel. They knock on a door. Worf pulls out his phaser. They go into the hotel room. There's like a surprise fruit basket in the room. But the fruit is all like when oranges get that stuff on them, that's what happened. Worf looks in the closet, and there's a spacesuit in there. And then I put, dudes close to the door. Like, they're in the hotel room. They left the door open. Then we see a patch on the spacesuit. It says CYARYBDIS, Charabitis, NASA, first beyond the solar system. Check the flag, Colonel B. Ritchie. Then they check in with the ship. Then Worf's like, dude, check out this. There's 2 Bibles in here. And then Data reads one of the Bibles, but it's a book, not a Bible. Also, I put, who are the Gideons? I think I answered that in one episode, and now I've forgotten. Man, I was writing jokes. They have a Goodreads moment with the Bibles or whatever. Then they find his journal. Whatever's in the journal's bad news. So bad, Picard crosses his arms. And there's a commercial. I mean, not really. There's just an ad break or act break. Then there's the Greens planet in the ship. And then Picard and Geordi and some other staff member. And they're in the hotel room. It's Data and Riker. Kind of like a conference call situation. And Picard seems to be like, ideas, people. I need some ideas here. Then Worf takes a phone call in the room. And from what I could tell, I think it was someone that called Worf. They said, is your refrigerator running? And he said, I don't know what you mean. And then they said, do you have Prince Albert in a can? And Worf didn't like that. So they say, let's get out of here. And then Worf actually closed the hotel door. So I had to give him props for that. Very considerate. Then Picard and Troy... He's like looking at his laptop. He's grimacing, Picard. Then Data and Worf, they come off the elevators. They're ready to work the room, especially Data. He meets up with this cowboy and the woman. And he does something to annoy the cowboy. Then I don't know what this says. Data confounder. Data confounder. Data can-founder. Looks like data co-founder. I don't know what that means. But then Riker and Worf watch the bellhop and the manager. And then it just gets even more bizarre, especially if you have no dialogue. There's a dude in a white suit. Like, looked a little bit like the guy on Wings, whose name escapes me. The main guy, who was also in Airplane. I think. And then he's wearing a white suit with a coat on his shoulders, like where your arms aren't in the coat. And there's some kind of showdown. Then we have Picard and Troy. They're thinking. Picard's eyes are closed while he thinks. Then the guy in the suit with the bellhop, he's the one in charge of the oranges. So they have this thing about the oranges. Worf almost gets involved, I think, just as, because he's, goes into Worf mode. Then they figure something out with Picard, and then there's a commercial. Then Riker comes with the book. Riker comes bowl. Riker comes boot. Riker comes boot book. Something like that. Data has a plan, explains it. Then they play craps with the Texan and the woman, and it's Data's turn. He blows on the dice. I think he has the woman blow on the dice first. He does this palm-up dice throw. This scene is amazing. 40 minutes. Get on your DVR. Not your DVR. It's on Amazon and Netflix, so there's no reason to miss this. 40 minutes, the Royale. If you see only one part of Next Generation this year, another point, he rubs the dice, he blows them, he does a no-look dice throw, like we've seen in the, like that Tom Cruise did in that pool movie, and then Ramsey Bolton did in the pool movie on Game of Thrones. I mean, I wrote like a teen from 8 years ago. I put OMG. The Data looks holy GIF or holy GIF, depending on how you say it. Like, it's another thing. If you can generate any memes or GIFs or GIFs, please get a hold of me and get some of this 40-minute scene down. At another point, he snaps and winks, and he's cracking Riker up. Then Riker's on a call with the captain, still cracking up. Everyone's happy. Riker's a big tipper, very smiley. Texan tries to rain on their parade for a minute. Living bellhip. Loving bellhop. Living bellhip. I don't know what that says. Dice blow, big win. Data gets a tray of money. Everybody's happy. Riker breaks it up. Riker breaks the thing. He shows off the book. He broke the illusion. Throws the book on the craps table. And they walk to the doors and out into the darkness. They call Picard, who's happy. And then they're out shipping the planet. And then Picard and Riker were in the office. Something about the wall panels distracted me. I don't know what, because I didn't write why. And that's the end. Okay, good news. Here's some facts. Royale, Season 2, Episode 12. I'm going to try reading through this one without having it playing in the background, but because I wish you could play it on like 1.5 speed. Eighth plank, distorted scraps. Let me read the dialogue I have here. Oh, yeah, Captain's log. We're entering the orbit around the 8th planet in the Theta 116 solar system. Passing Klingon cruiser reported a strange vessel pieces in the atmosphere. We're investigating. And I think that was another thing. I don't know if this is in my notes, but I realized watching this episode how many of these are like mysteries, very procedural. But I guess in a more episodic way, because they never have a set. They do not have a set procedure they follow. Every time, or maybe I'll learn they do. But so this is the mystery. There's scraps of a ship, and then they're investigating. I guess that's why Captain said it, not me. But then Geordi's talking about the planet. He says it's nasty, methane, neon. Ammonia tornadoes. It's got the debris in elliptical orbit. And then he says he has the chills, like I said earlier. And he says nasty. And then we have the quote. I'll just read through this dialogue because it's quick of this setup with Riker and Picard. Picard's looking at his computer. He says he spins it. Is this when he spins it? Maybe it's later, but he says, Fermi's last theorem. Are you familiar with it? And Riker says, vaguely, more of a charmer than math guy. I was daydreaming about being on a starship. I don't know. Is this the one? What's this Matt Damon figured out in Good Will Hunting? Is this the same theorem? Because Picard says that when Pierre de Fermi died, they found this equation scrawled in the notes. X to the nth plus y to the nth equals z to the nth. When n is greater than 2, which he says has no solution in whole numbers, But he also added this phrase, remarkable proof. Riker said, yeah, it's coming back to me. No proof included. And Picard, like, it's just Picard. Man, talk about, like, great. He says, well, the 800 years people have been trying to solve it. And Riker says, including you. Picard says, I find it stimulating, and it puts things in perspective. In our arrogance, we feel we are so advanced, and yet we cannot unravel a simple knot tied by a part-time French mathematician working alone without a computer. And then this says a lot about the relationship. Riker just moves into the business. He says, Captain, there's debris in a loose orbit. And Picard says, can you identify it? And Riker says, no, let's beam a section aboard for analysis. And Riker says, make it so, number one. And then they see the markings, what sort of markings. And, this is another one. Picard says, we've got ourselves a little puzzle, number one. And he says, sir, I guess we have. And that's when it opens. So, again, setting up the investigation of the mystery. I liked it so much. I said, we've underlined, got, underline, ourselves, underline, and so on. Then it opens, and then data, he says data analysis. Oh, no, data says analysis. It said, yeah, this is a terrestrial in our origin, mid-20th century. And Picard's like, no Earthship could have been out this far. And data says, nevertheless, that's not what our test indicates. And the markings on it are consistent. So this is after they found the piece and beamed it aboard, I guess this is the benefit of having it playing in the background. But they say, any indication of what destroyed it? Troy says that, data. He says, well, that's even more more significant, counselor. The molecules seem to have disintegrated. And Riker says, how? And Data says, there's something from our time. Picard says, curiouser, and curiouser. And then Wesley says, there's a building on this planet sitting on frozen methane and something unknown, sir. And then I love how Picard built, he says, suggestions. And I said, well, it's got breathable air. Maybe somebody has to go down there. It doesn't seem like there's anything dangerous down there. But we don't know. And he says, I think we could risk a minimal away team, number one. And then they set their phasers for stun, green light, energize. It's like we're on the edge of a hurricane. And then they said, Commander, what is that door? What is that, a door? And it's kind of spinning and inviting them in. Unusual place. There is a tape on the, what does this say? There's a tape on revolving door. I don't know what that note says. I think that's what the report, they said, well, there's a revolving door down here, Commander Picard. They say we're entering. And then there's lots of happy sounds, and all three of the Data, Worf, and Riker seem confused. Then up in the bridge, there's nothing to lock onto. Then Riker tries to call the Enterprise. He says, we've entered the structure, come in. And then Wesley says, and when they went through that antique doorway, the signal disappeared. And then he says, Geordi, what do you think? And Geordi says, unknown. That's choice this episode, unknown. And then Data's like, we better get back. And Riker's like, dude, are you seeing this place? We're here. We might as well check it out. So, again, the Riker swagger. Then there's a bellhop. They check in. It says, go to the front desk. Very good. And then Riker rings the bell. The guy's been ignoring him, like doing the mail or something. So then Riker clears his throat. And the guy says, the assistant manager says, welcome, and have you had a nice trip? We've been expecting you. And they're like, expecting us? Then there's this scene with bad dialogue and music with the bellhop talking about Rita, the manager, very melodramatic. And as will be revealed, they're talking about Mickey D, who's like the antagonist for these characters. And my question was, in 1989, was it called Mickey D's in 1989 or 86? I think it was 89. Or did it become Mickey D's after, like for McDonald's? Because if it was, this is like, they say Mickey D a lot, so... Rita's too much for you to handle. Then the manager gives out the keys and says, enjoy, gentlemen. And then Riker says, what is this place? Worf says, what is this place? He says it really funny. And the guy goes, the Royale. And Riker goes, what planet is it? And he goes, Earth. What do you call it? And Worf goes, we call it Theta 8. It was just... It was so funny. And I mean, I think intentionally, like he goes, we call it Theta 8. I don't know who was better in this episode, honestly. And then Data says, Commander, none of these people are emitting life signs. And he says, what do you mean? They're not alive? Then Worf says, he says you mean they're not alive? Like very, I don't know, you got to hear it. And they say, well, what do you mean? Worf says, these beings, are they machines or mere illusions designed to deceive us? And Data says, no. He goes, they exist, but they don't register as man or machine. And at this point, I would just wonder why do they don't think they're on a holodeck? And how often is that going to happen in Star Trek, or how often would it in this world, in reality, like that you trap people on holodecks? But I think I learned, maybe it was from the episode I'm watching now, that they consume a lot of energy, these illusions, like the holodecks do. But he says, no, they just don't register as man as machine. Then the Texan comes out, the elevator, and he says, this creature has no DNA structure. And the guy says, look, who you talking about? And then this is Ahab's wife's favorite moment. Data says, the guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. Time to get to business. And Data says, what sort of business do you think suppose he's getting down to? He really said that. What sort of business do you suppose he's getting down to? Then on the bridge, Picard wants a status report, and Wes and Geordi are working on it. Then Riker talks to Troy. He's not happy. He's like, he goes, what is Riker is not following procedure? He should have immediately come back. And Troy says, I don't think he's in danger. If I could guess what he's feeling, it's amusement. And Picard's like, amused. Or bemused. I put bemused. Then Data plays blackjack, which is pretty funny because he rattles out, he learns blackjack, or like reads it off the back of his eyeballs. Then he has the hat on. They say ante up, which I don't think you ante up in blackjack. You just bet. Oh, he says blackjack, access. And then he raises his eyebrows. That was funny. I wonder if how many people were, I think the man and the woman here have a gambling problem. And then Data's like taking too many hits. The guy's like, what are you doing? If Data says, if the objective of the game. Also, the guy from Texas was rattling on at one point, and Data's mouth was open. He has a pleased look, and then they say, I think Riker says, Data, you having fun? And he says, fun, sir? While there's a certain amount of enjoyment involved, I'm conducting research. And he says, Riker says, save it. We're getting out of here. Also, it's like, how often does Data use sir? Then Picard is like, progress. And Wes is like, we're doing this encoding scheme, something. And, hydrogen, carbon. And they're going back and forth. And this was fun. It's just like, I love it. He goes, those are some very Picard says, those are some fairly aggressive computations, Lieutenant. like when he's looking at what Geordi's doing. I mean, I underlined it because it was so good. And they say blah, blah, blah. And he says, make it so. Then we're at the hotel. They try to leave. Then they say, try that again. So they did 2 tries. But they try to go through the revolving door. It just brings them back to the hotel. There's some mystery music and confused looks. Then Riker's, let's find another way out of here. And they kind of get the brush off. And that's when Worf tries to phaser the wall. He says, I believe we're trapped, sir. Or maybe Data says that. And something trapped here. And then there's an ad break. I've been trying to come up with initials that are always wrong. CL, Captain's Log. Oh, yeah, that's what CL would stand for. Yeah, Captain's Log. We're still out of touch with them. Then Troy, she says she's Captain. Riker's feeling tense now. There's been a change in the situation. Then Riker goes up to the assistant manager. He wants some answers. Then Archer, something. Oh, another bellhop manager exchange about Mickey D. Oh, that's when Riker says, I want some answers. And the guy says, I'm sorry. He says, that's not good enough. And then he says, I want to see the manager. And he goes, sorry, the manager's really busy. That was Lynchian. There's something about that was a Lynchian, that there's a manager. Or, yeah. And then Picard gets through. It's very choppy. He goes, number 1, why haven't you left the building? And you can tell Picard's a little testy with number 1. And this kind of makes me wonder about, they do have different personalities. So Riker's a lot looser, like if this is some sort of resentment thing. But then Data says, Data's looking at this. All of a sudden, after that, he says, I'm picking up some human DNA in the hotel. I put an exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, because it's just hilarious. I mean, you don't want to think about it too much, but I'm picking up some human DNA. And then they say, let's take the turbo lift. Worf's like, this thing's malfunctioning. And then they're in the hotel, and they say it's behind the door. There's DNA, but no signs of life. And then there's the astronauts there who's passed in his sleep, and Worf says, that's a terrible way to go. And they said, typical Worf. And they said, well, how long has this person been here? 283 years, a sterile environment. And then I guess Riker kind of figures out this whole place is just window dressing. And then they pull out the uniform, and it has 52 stars, which Riker says that means it was from the years 2033 to 2079. So it means we're picking up something in the next few years. And he says, rest in peace. Then Picard calls, he says, what's your situation? Which I thought was like a, thing you said. And then they say, well, there's this novel about the Hotel Royale. And he says, summarize it, please. So Data starts reading it. Then Wesley looks it up. Wesley's looking about Colonel Ritchie, who says they launched on July 23rd, 2037. Third manned attempt to travel beyond the confines of our solar system. Telemetry failed, never heard from again. And then Hotel Royale by Todd Matthews. Story of a group of compulsive gamblers, caught in a bunch of melodrama with, then Data's like, yeah, Mickey D, and the bellboy, with a subplot with an old man and a younger woman gambling and squandering money. And then they figure out, well, that's exactly, we're in this story. We're immersed in this story. And then Rick says, wait a second, there's a diary here by Colonel Ritchie. I write this in the hopes it'll be someday read. I can only surmise at this point our shuttle, got some sort of alien contamination, and, I was left. I fell asleep, and then I woke up in this Royale Hotel, precisely the same as the novel I happen to be reading in my room. And he goes, for the last 38 years I've been here. And he goes, I think the aliens created this place out of guilt, presuming the novel we had on board was a guide to our preferred lifestyle and social habits. Obviously, they thought it was the world I came. I hold no malice towards them. They don't know, how awful it is living this novel every day. For his badly written book with endless cliches and shallow characters. Can't wait till I move on from this one. And Picard says, okay, now it all makes sense. But why can't you leave? And then they're having the conference call. But Geordi's like, maybe I'll cut something. Maybe I could cut you out of there somehow. And we could freeze something that's like the extra character. And they say, in theory, we could do that. But then Picard's like, okay, we'll take as long as it takes to figure out a good option. And Riker says, are you trying to motivate us? Because we'll find our own way out then. And then 29:30, like the phone rings, which I didn't know how Worf would know how to answer the phone. But again, this is another scene to watch. And why Worf answers the phone, I guess because he's a security officer. He says, there's a female voice on here. She wants to know if we want the room cleaned. And it's like a panic. It was just, this was a really good scene because Riker's like, tell her no. And Worf says, no. And then Riker says, what did she say? And he said, she says the kitchen will be open for 24 hours if we change our minds. I think she said room service, not room cleaned. And then Riker's like, let's go down to the lobby and figure this out and get out of here. They want a room service. And the way Worf looked at the phone, it was just worth it. And they're out. And then Troy and Picard are like reading the novel on Picard's screen. He's just starting it. His face is really good when he says, it was a dark and stormy night. He goes, oh, this is bloody terrible. Then Data and Worf have this funny moment when they get off the elevator. Data says, I suggest we separate and blend in. Casual queries offered inconspicuously may prove fruitful. Worf just he's like, yeah, right. I put blend in, a triple exclamation point. 31:28, Worf's face, like he wants to say something back at him. Then Data taps Tex on the shoulder, and he says, how did you get here? And he goes, I drove here. I'm a caddy. He goes, I got a sweet car. Data says, where's your automobile now? He goes, out front. And Data says, could you take me there? He goes, no. I'm trying to gamble with this other customer. And Data says, I believe you're trapped inside the Royal just as I am. He goes, no. I'm trapped in this game. In my gambling obsession. But then Data gets a clue because he tells her to stay pat. Because he says, like he's like, wait a second, the novel is playing out here. Can't remember what the clue was, and I didn't write it down. Is he tells her the odds the odds favor her staying pat, but she still hits. Then Riker and Worf, and they see Mickey D come with this little interlude. Then we see halfway through the scene, Picard and Troy are having an audible moment. They're like listening to the deluxe version on Audible, like a voice acting version. And Troy says, I don't believe humans used to talk like that. And Picard says, well, it's a second-rate novel. And then they don't interfere, like with Mickey D and the bellhop, which I said, is that part of the Prime Directive? It could be. Then Mickey D leaves the hotel, which gets Riker's attention. There's Riker's clue. And then he calls Picard. He goes, what's going on page 244? Riker says Picard says the hotel gets bought. And he goes, by whom? Very good language, by the way, Riker. He goes, 3 men from out of town, $12.5 million. And he goes, Captain, and he gets this huge grin. And he says, we're buying the hotel. Then there's an ad. And then we see Data. And I said, is this like that movie? Like, which came first? The Tom Cruise, Dustin Hoffman movie, which, of course, I should have looked up, but now I can't remember. And I'm not going to remember it now. And then Data's talking about how he can win at craps. Riker's like, elaborate. And then Data talks about, all the odds in craps. And he says, can you do it? And Data says, oh, yeah, I can do it. Don't worry. And single digits on each cube. And then the guy says, your turn, Slick. And then Riker says to Data, go to work. And then the first one doesn't go well. So then Data says, I will make a new attempt. And then he goes, baby needs a new pair of shoes. This is when it gets really good. And he has a woman blow on it. And then there's a montage. I can't read this. Strauss 1, number 1. I don't know what that says. Run of luck. And then Picard says, like Riker tells him, and then he says, don't get out of character. The characters in the book are flamboyantly generous. And then Riker gets really funny. He starts talking to everybody. He says, like, bet it all, you know. And he knows everybody. He goes, we need some spreading around money, Data. And then he knows everybody's name. He goes, hey, Ziggy, here's some money for you, for the cocktail waitresses. He gives some to the parking lot attendants. Which was weird because he says, go outside. And he goes, Vanessa, here's something for you. And Riker goes, when the train comes in, everybody rides. And I said, Riker, you dog. Like my handwriting at the bottom of this, I cannot understand anything. Puzzle, I see. At end, puzzle, New Year, she. Oh, so then the montage goes, and then it's like just a little bit more funny. You know, Riker says, we bought the place lock, stock, and barrel. Done deal. And then, you know, there's a little more comedy. Then they get out, and then they go up, and then they have the little thing with Picard and Riker to close it out in the room. And Picard says, welcome back, number 1. And Riker says, very strange experience, puzzling. I can't comprehend how this is what's good about Star Trek, too, how Colonel Ritchie's vessel traveled out that far, not on its own at any rate. And Picard says, perhaps they were brought here by whoever created that make-believe world down there. It's possible they didn't know how fragile the humans aboard were. And Riker says, none of it makes any sense. And Picard says, like Fermat's theorem, it's a puzzle we may never solve. And I guess the puzzle was solved at some point, but just amazing, like good stuff. And that's the end of the episode.
All right, but this is Scoots with a tuck you in message for very specific listeners. So if you're listening to me and hearing me right now, you know, I guess I'm here to keep you company, right, as you're trying to fall asleep still. So, yeah, this podcast does work imperfectly, but I'm still here. We're here together. So I just got to clear, are you a super listener or are you a new listener? Are you an occasional listener? Or are you just in the middle of going through something? You've been listening for a couple weeks or a couple months? Or have you been listening for longer than 6 months, longer than a year, longer than 3 years? Do you listen to 1 or 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes a week? Or do you listen to 4 or 5 episodes a week? Do you listen all night long? Or do you fall asleep fast? If you're one of those last 2 groups, I definitely need you to listen and hear what I'm saying. But any of those super listener groups, right? This is a message specifically for you, the one person. And really, if you're listening and hearing me right now, you probably are the only person hearing me. And if you already said yes, you're 1 out of 20,000 people that get the most out of the podcast, that the podcast on some level is valuable to you. If you're part of one of those groups or multiple parts of those groups, if there's anything valuable about the podcast to you, does it have tangible value? I know it makes your life better. I know that supporting the show will feel really good, but I'm also super confident the Sleep With Me Plus is something we designed with super listeners in mind. And I'm pretty sure you'll miss the show if we have to make drastic changes or it stops existing. Think about that. Like, does that change the value of the podcast? I've asked before, like, if Sleep With Me went away, how much would you pay for it to get it back? Because once we stop it, it's, you know, or cut back anymore, it's going to be tough to, it's just like machinery. The show works like a machine. And if we shut down a part of it and it stops, I think you understand. Actually, and it doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't even matter if you it just matters if you think the show's valuable and that value has a tangible meaning to you, like you're willing to support the show back. That's always what this membership and supporting the show's been about. But over the past couple of years, I've gotten more and more clarity on how people listen and the degree it's valuable. And so the question is the degree it's valuable to you more than whatever's standing in your way? Particularly if it's just stuff that stands in my way. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Somebody else will do it. My support won't make a difference. I'll do it one day. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. Someone else will do it for me. That's just too much work. And believe me, I've been in that spot where when we say it out loud, it sounds silly. But I'm not trying to be demeaning. Like, I've been in that thing where it's like, that's just too much work to sign up and take 2 minutes to support your podcast. Even as a podcaster, there's been times, well, I'll do it later. I'll support that show later. Sounds like, I mean, I got to go on the website, then I got to look it up, then I got to find my card. So is the value of the podcast more than that or not? Because if it's not, then it's like, okay, I guess that's all I need to know now moving forward. I know I've heard from the people who can't afford to support the show, and I've heard from the people that loathe me asking directly for support. So those groups are well represented. And the people willing to take action right away are well represented. But how big is this group? Like, and what am I up against? Or is that group that's like, and how strong is that resistance? That's what it's gonna come down to, right? Is that valuable to you? If it's that valuable to you, go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus right now and sign up. Push that water up the hill or whatever. Say, hey, you know what? That's not true. The show does matter more to me than 2 minutes. I will go upstairs and find my credit card. This podcast has changed my life. I am a super listener. I do listen all night long, or I have listened for 3 years, or I have listened for 6 months. I do listen 5 nights a week. I do fall asleep fast. I do listen to every episode. I do have playlists. I do have favorites and things I don't like about the show. I have preferences. I have opinions about the show. I listen to older episodes. Yeah. If any of those are yeses for you, maybe say yes to whatever's holding you back and say, hey, yeah, this is important to me. What you're saying, it's more of like a mist that stands in the way, not just of me supporting the podcast that's made my life better, but of other things that's made my life better, because that's what I've found personally. Because believe me, all those voices, they'd rather me not be asking directly. They'd rather I never had to ask for support ever in the history of the show. But that would have meant when I first had brought in money to hire Posty to work on the show, that's what the choice was. Well, I can't keep doing this without some help. And how much does it cost for somebody to edit one episode? Okay, then how much would it be for you to edit 2 episodes? Okay, how much would it be for you to edit 8 episodes a month? Okay, now we have the money to pay you to edit that many episodes a month. Can you do 12 episodes a month? Oh, wow, okay. Okay, what's the next bill we could start paying? That's how the show developed and kept going. And I plan on keeping it going. Or keeping at this until I find out, nope, that's okay. It's just not enough. It's not valuable enough to most listeners. That's okay. It's just not valuable enough to most super listeners. If we find that out, then I'll make the hard choices. But I believe it is. And I do think, I do at least suspect from my own personal journey that, yeah, there's a group of listeners that'll never support the show, that are diametrically opposed to it. And there's people who can't support the show, but then most people are in the middle somewhere. And it's just this other stuff, these other obstacles that are real and powerful, but they're not monumental that we got to push through. So if that's you, if you're still saying yes, can you support the show right now? Before those thoughts start coming back, like right now, while there's a gap, while you're listening to me, can you pick up your phone? Or can you go upstairs? Can you go downstairs? Can you go in the other room? Can you go to your desk right now and sign up to support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Or you could sign up like right on your phone. And by the way, just set up the bonus content tomorrow, you know. You'll hear from me. You'll hear from Sleep With Me Plus and Supercast that runs it for us. But if the door is open now, don't wait because the door is going to close. We both know that because we both have experience in it. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus right now. Thank you so much.